Zara Williams sprinted down Madison Avenue, her cardigan held uselessly over her head as rain poured from the sky in sheets. The weather forecast had promised partly cloudy, not this deluge. Her worn canvas shoes splashed through puddles as she desperately searched for shelter. The boutique appeared like a mirage, all gleaming windows and elegant displays. Zara normally avoided places like this, where a single scarf probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget, but desperation overrode pride. She pushed through the heavy glass door, nearly stumbling into the hushed, climate-controlled sanctuary. "May I help you?" A sales associate approached with a smile that didn't quite mask her assessment of Zara's drenched, decidedly non-designer appearance. "Just waiting out the rain," Zara said, trying to sound confident despite feeling like a drowned rat in a palace. She moved deeper into the store, careful not to drip on anything expensive. That's when she saw him. The man stood near the lingerie section, examining a piece of black lace that left almost nothing to the imagination. Everything about him screamed wealth: the perfectly tailored charcoal suit, the watch that probably cost more than her annual salary, the confident way he held himself like someone who'd never been told no. "This one is exquisite," the sales associate beside him gushed. "Very tasteful." "I'll take it," the man said, his voice deep and assured. "And that red set as well. My assistant's birthday is coming up, and I like to show appreciation for good work." Zara felt her blood pressure spike. Did he seriously just say that? "Excuse me," she heard herself say, her voice cutting through the boutique's refined atmosphere. "Did you just say that lingerie is for your assistant?" The man turned, eyebrows rising as he took in Zara's wet, bedraggled appearance. His eyes were a striking shade of blue, and up close, she could see he was younger than she'd initially thought, probably early 30s, with sharp features and dark hair styled in that effortlessly perfect way that probably required a team of professionals. "I did," he said slowly, a hint of amusement coloring his tone. "Is that a problem? Is that a—" Zara stepped closer, rainwater still dripping from her hair. "Yes, that's a problem. A massive problem. What you're describing is textbook sexual harassment." His expression shifted to something between surprise and annoyance. "I think you're making quite a leap in logic." "Am I? Let me paint you a picture." Zara crossed her arms. "You're clearly her boss. You have power over her employment, her livelihood, her career prospects. And you're using your position to give her lingerie? How is she supposed to react to that? If she refuses, she risks seeming ungrateful. If she accepts, she's uncomfortable and possibly feels objectified. Either way, you've created a hostile work environment." The sales associate looked between them, clearly unsure whether to intervene. The man set down the lingerie, giving Zara his full attention. "You seem very certain about my intentions." "Because I've seen this before. I work with women every day who've been put in impossible positions by men who think their money and power entitle them to inappropriate behavior." Zara's voice rose with passion. "Maybe you think you're being generous or charming, but what you're really doing is abusing your position of authority. That's quite an accusation from someone who knows nothing about me or my relationship with my assistant." "I know enough. I know that professional gifts should be professional. A bonus check, extra vacation days, a nice pen set, those are appropriate. Lingerie?" She gestured at the lace items. "That's crossing a line so far you can't even see the line anymore." For a long moment, they stared at each other. Zara could feel her heart hammering, whether from righteous anger or the intensity of his gaze, she couldn't tell. "You're very passionate about this," he said finally. "Damn right I am. Women deal with enough without their bosses treating them like objects." Something shifted in his expression, the amusement faded, replaced by what might have been respect. "What would you suggest instead?" The question caught Zara off guard. "What? For a gift? If I genuinely want to show appreciation for excellent work, what would you recommend?" Zara hesitated, sensing a trap but unable to back down now. A professional development opportunity. Conference tickets, a mentorship program, funding for continuing education. Something that invests in her career, not her wardrobe. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then looked back at her. Done. I've just messaged my assistant asking what professional development opportunities she's interested in. Zara blinked. What? You made valid points. I'm acting on them. He extended his hand. Cameron Westfield. She stared at his outstretched hand, suddenly aware that she'd just lectured a complete stranger in the middle of an expensive boutique while looking like a drowned cat. But she took his hand anyway, noting the firm, warm grip. Zara Williams. Well, Ms. Williams, thank you for the education. Not many people are brave enough to call me out on anything, let alone in such a public setting. His smile was genuine now, transforming his whole face. It's refreshing. I wasn't trying to be refreshing. I was trying to stop you from being inappropriate. And you succeeded. Though I should mention, the lingerie actually was for my sister's bachelorette party. She asked me to pick up a few things for the gift bags. Zara felt heat flood her face. Oh. But your points remain valid. If it had been for an employee, you'd have been absolutely right to object. Cameron's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it. My assistant just responded. She's been wanting to attend a Women in Leadership conference in Boston. I'll make it happen. He started toward the exit, then paused and looked back at Zara. I hope the rain stops soon, Ms. Williams. And thank you again for the reminder that good intentions don't excuse poor judgment. Then he was gone, leaving Zara standing in the boutique, dripping onto the marble floor, wondering what had just happened and why her heart was still racing. 2 weeks after the boutique incident, Zara stood in the community center she'd helped build from nothing, checking last-minute details for the fundraiser she'd organized. The Riverside Community Center served the neighborhood's most vulnerable populations: homeless youth, struggling families, elderly residents who couldn't afford senior care. Tonight's event was crucial. They needed to raise at least $50,000 to keep the doors open for another year. The caterers just arrived, her colleague Marcus announced, poking his head into her makeshift office. And Zara, you need to see the donation board. We've already hit $30,000 before the event even started. What? How? Zara rushed out to the main hall, where a projection screen displayed incoming donations in real time. As she watched, another $5,000 appeared, credited to anonymous donor. Someone's feeling generous tonight, Marcus said. Maybe we'll actually make our goal. The evening began with local politicians giving speeches about community investment, followed by performances from the center's youth music program. Zara watched from the side of the room, too nervous to sit, mentally calculating whether they'd reach their target. Then the MC stepped to the microphone. And now, I'm thrilled to introduce our keynote speaker and tonight's platinum sponsor, tech entrepreneur and philanthropist, Cameron Westfield. Zara's stomach dropped. Cameron walked onto the stage in a perfectly tailored navy suit, looking completely at ease under the spotlight. His eyes scanned the crowd and stopped when they found her. A slow smile spread across his face. Thank you all for coming tonight, he began, his voice carrying easily through the space. The Riverside Community Center represents everything I believe philanthropy should be: grassroots, community-driven, and focused on sustainable solutions rather than temporary fixes. He spoke eloquently about the importance of investing in underserved communities, about breaking cycles of poverty through education and support services. Zara had to admit he was an engaging speaker, passionate and well-informed. Nothing like the careless man she'd imagined in the boutique. I'm committing $100,000 to the center's operating budget, Cameron announced, and the room erupted in applause. But more than money, I want to offer partnership, collaboration between my foundation and the incredible work being done here by people like Zara Williams. Her name on his lips sent an unexpected shiver through her. Every head in the room turned to look at her, and Zara forced herself to smile and nod acknowledgement. After his speech, donors and community members swarmed Cameron, but his gaze kept finding her across the room. Finally, when the crowd thinned, he made his way to where she stood by the refreshment table. "Ms. Williams. We meet again. Mr. Westfield." Zara kept her voice professional despite her racing heart. "Thank you for your generous donation. The center desperately needs it." "I know. I did my research after our encounter." He accepted a cup of coffee from the table. "Riverside serves over 300 families annually on a shoestring budget. Your outcomes data is impressive. 80% of your youth participants graduate high school, compared to 50% in the surrounding area. You really did your homework." "I always do. Especially when someone makes an impression." His blue eyes held hers. "I owe you an apology. I've been thinking about what you said in the boutique, and you were right to call out what looked like inappropriate behavior, even if you'd misunderstood the situation." Zara felt her defenses lower slightly. "I should apologize too. I jumped to conclusions without knowing the full context. That wasn't fair. Your instinct to protect vulnerable people was admirable. Don't apologize for that." Cameron set down his coffee. "I have a proposition for you. Have dinner with me tomorrow night. I'd like to discuss potential partnerships between my foundation and your programs." "That sounds like a business meeting, not dinner." "It can be both. I promise to be on my best behavior." His smile was disarming. "Unless you'd prefer to lecture me about something else. I've discovered I don't entirely mind being challenged by you." Against her better judgment, Zara found herself agreeing. "Fine. But somewhere normal, not some 5-star restaurant where the menu doesn't have prices." "Deal. I know a great taco place in Brooklyn. Very normal, prices clearly listed." The next evening, Zara met Cameron at a casual Mexican restaurant that was decidedly not what she'd expected. The walls were covered in colorful murals, the tables were plastic, and the food smelled incredible. "Surprised?" Cameron asked, pulling out her chair. "Honestly? Yes. I figured you'd say taco place and mean some trendy fusion spot where each taco costs $30. I grew up in this neighborhood," he said, and there was something vulnerable in his admission. "Before the money, before the company. This place has been here since I was 10 years old. Best fish tacos in the city." They ordered, and conversation flowed more easily than Zara had anticipated. Cameron asked genuine questions about her work, about the challenges facing the community, about her vision for the center's future. He didn't talk down to her or treat her like a charity case. Instead, he listened like her opinions actually mattered. "Why do you do this?" Zara asked over her second taco. "The philanthropy, I mean. You could just collect your money and live on a yacht somewhere." Cameron was quiet for a moment. "Because I got lucky. I had an idea, the right timing, and enough privilege to take risks. Most people don't get those advantages. It seems obscene to hoard wealth when it could actually change lives." That's a surprisingly grounded perspective for a billionaire. "Is that what the internet says I am now? Billionaire?" He smiled wryly. "The money still doesn't feel real sometimes. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn who got good at coding." "Don't do that," Zara said. "Do what?" "Downplay your success. You built something from nothing. That takes more than luck." She leaned forward. "But I appreciate that you recognize your advantages. A lot of wealthy people convince themselves they're entirely self-made. What about you? What made you become a social worker?" Zara hesitated. She didn't usually share her story with strangers, but something about Cameron's genuine interest made her want to open up. "I grew up in foster care. Bounced between 7 homes before I aged out of the system at 18. She watched his expression carefully, looking for pity, but found only focused attention. I had one social worker, Miss Chen, who actually cared. She helped me apply for scholarships, found me a part-time job, made sure I had what I needed. She's the reason I made it to college. The reason I'm here now. So you became what you needed when you were younger. Exactly. The system failed me in a lot of ways, but Ms. Chen showed me that one person who genuinely cares can change everything. Zara smiled. Now I try to be that person for others. Cameron reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The gesture was simple but sent warmth flooding through her. That's extraordinary, Zara. Truly. They talked for 3 hours, long past when they'd finished eating. Cameron told her about the pressure of sudden wealth, about relationships that fell apart when people couldn't see past his money. Zara shared her frustrations with bureaucracy, with funding cuts, with the endless battle to help people society had given up on. When Cameron finally walked her to her car, parked several blocks away in a neighborhood he clearly knew well, he stopped under a streetlight. I'd like to see you again. Not for business, just to see you. Zara's heart raced. Cameron, we're from completely different worlds. Are we? You fight for people who can't fight for themselves. I try to use my resources to help communities like the one I came from. Seems like we're in the same world, just approaching it from different angles. He had a point, but Zara's instinct was still to protect herself. Getting involved with someone like Cameron Westfield seemed like a recipe for heartbreak. I need to think about it, she said honestly. Fair enough. He leaned down and kissed her cheek gently. Thank you for tonight. For seeing me as a person, not a bank account. As Zara drove home, she couldn't stop replaying the evening in her mind. Cameron Westfield was nothing like she'd expected. Ultaneously completely safe and terrified. What are we doing? She asked quietly. Honestly? I have no idea. Cameron pressed a kiss to her temple. But I don't want to stop. We're from different worlds, Cameron. Eventually, that's going to matter. Or maybe it doesn't matter as much as you think. He pulled her closer. Maybe what matters is that we both care about the same things. That we make each other better. Zara wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that their different backgrounds wouldn't eventually tear them apart. But she'd seen too many relationships fail over smaller differences. Let's take this slow, she said. Figure it out as we go. I can do slow. Cameron smiled against her hair. Though I should mention, I'm already completely gone for you. They stayed like that for hours, talking and touching and discovering each other. And when Cameron finally drove Zara home in the early morning hours, she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this happy. Which was exactly why she knew it couldn't last. And that terrified her. Over the next month, Zara and Cameron's professional collaboration evolved into something neither could quite define. They met regularly to discuss partnership opportunities between his foundation and the community center, but the meetings always lasted longer than necessary, conversations drifting from budgets to books to childhood memories. Cameron proved surprisingly hands-on, showing up at the center to volunteer, sitting in on support groups, talking with residents about their needs. He didn't just write checks, he listened, learned, and adapted his approach based on what the community actually wanted rather than what he assumed they needed. You're different than I thought, Zara admitted one evening as they packed up after a youth mentorship session. Cameron had spent 2 hours helping teenagers with college applications. Different how? Less detached. More human. She smiled at his raised eyebrow. I expected you to be one of those donors who shows up for photo ops and disappears. But you actually care. Of course I care. Why else would I be here? Tax write-offs? Good publicity? Easing a guilty conscience about being obscenely wealthy? Cameron laughed, the sound warm and genuine. All valid reasons for some people, I'm sure. But Zara, I meant what I said at dinner. I remember what it was like to struggle. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep us housed. I'm not going to forget that just because I got lucky with a tech startup. They'd fallen into a rhythm of working together during the week and having dinner on Friday nights, still maintaining the pretense that it was business, though the conversations had become deeply personal. Zara learned about Cameron's fear of being used for his money, about relationships that fell apart when people couldn't separate him from his bank account. Cameron discovered Zara's fierce protectiveness of the people she served, her tendency to work herself to exhaustion, her secret dream of opening multiple community centers across the city. One Friday night, instead of their usual restaurant, Cameron invited Zara to his foundation's office to show her preliminary plans for a new initiative. "We're creating a fellowship program," he explained, pulling up designs on a large monitor. "Full funding for social workers and community organizers to develop innovative programs. No strings attached, just support for good ideas." Zara studied the proposal, impressed despite herself. "This is incredible. Who designed it?" "You did, actually. Based on everything you've told me about barriers in the field." He pulled up another screen. "And I want you to head the selection committee." "Cameron, I can't." "Why not? You know this work better than anyone. You understand what communities actually need." He turned to face her fully. "I trust your judgment, Zara." The office was quiet, most staff having left hours ago. They stood close together in front of the monitor, and Zara became acutely aware of Cameron's proximity, the subtle scent of his cologne, the warmth radiating from his body. "You keep surprising me," she said softly. "Is that a good thing?" "I'm not sure yet." But she was smiling. Cameron reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I need to tell you something. These dinners, this work together, it stopped being just professional for me weeks ago." Zara's breath caught. "Cameron. I'm falling for you, Zara. The way you fight for people, your passion, your refusal to compromise your values. Even the way you called me out in that boutique." His hand cupped her cheek. "Tell me I'm not alone in feeling this." She should step back, should maintain professional boundaries. But looking into his eyes, seeing genuine vulnerability there, Zara couldn't deny what she'd been feeling. "You're not alone," she whispered. Cameron kissed her, and it was nothing like the chaste kiss on her cheek from weeks ago. This was passionate and desperate, like they'd both been holding back for too long. Zara's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer as his arms wrapped around her waist. They stumbled backward until Zara's back hit the wall, Cameron's body pressed against hers. His mouth moved to her neck, and she gasped, her head falling back. "God, I've wanted this," he murmured against her skin. "Wanted you." "Your office," Zara managed, barely coherent. "Anyone could." "Empty building. Just us." Cameron pulled back to look at her, his eyes dark with desire. "But we can stop if you want. Just say the word." Instead of answering, Zara pulled him down for another kiss. They made their way to the leather couch in his office, shedding jackets and shoes. Cameron was reverent, taking his time, making sure she wanted each step forward. When they finally came together, it felt inevitable, like something that had been building since that rainy day in the boutique. Afterward, wrapped in Cameron's arms with the city lights glowing through the windows, Zara felt sim.